You're all good to start.
Okay, thank you very much. Neil, are the representatives from the Department of Education? Is Brandon, I see you are here. Thank you. Okay, I will start. So welcome to the November 22nd, 2022 meeting of the CV6 Youth and Education Committee. My name is John Keller and I am chair of the committee. We are joined by Essential Community Associate Alex Crawford. The meeting is called to order at, let me change my view here so I can see it, at 6:35 p.m. As a reminder, New York state law now requires all community board members to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed from the time the meeting is called to order until the time the meeting is adjourned. If your camera is not on and your name not properly displayed, you cannot count towards quorum. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions, and we certainly will have the time to do that from the public. Do we have someone, could someone from the committee volunteer if they have not done so already to take the minutes of tonight's meeting?
I'll do it.
Thank you very much, Stuart. I appreciate that very much. So we will now take attendance by roll call, and Alexandra will conduct the roll call.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Neil Barclay.
Present.
John Keller.
Present.
Abigail Krusmark. Phil Napolitano. Stu Desser.
Present.
John DeRico.
John contacted me earlier today and said he was ill, and so he might not be able to join us. But as far as I know, Abigail is planning to join us.
Okay. Aisha Siddiqui.
Here.
And Matthew Weintraub.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And thank everyone for being here. And as I said, I expect other members to join us shortly. So the agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and appears on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from the October 25th committee meeting were distributed ahead of time. If there is no objection, we will adopt these minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting these minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the October 25th committee meeting are adopted and will soon be available on the CV6 website. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. As you know, I'll quickly recognize you. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having, or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When the committee member is given the floor to speak, I'll identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak, and I'm quite liberal with that. Committee members are required by the state open meetings law to have their Zoom cameras on and your first and last name displayed during tonight's entire meeting, from call to order to adjournment. If you must step away from your computer briefly, you're required to leave your camera on, and we fully recognize that sometimes people might lower their cameras because they have privacy issues with family walking around behind them. That's okay, just as long as you leave it alive. So we have two major items on tonight's agenda. The first is the discussion of school bus safety and with an associated resolution related to Public Law 10. which was has been signed, is now the law, and which we are going to urge the mayor to enact. Alexandra, could you put the resolution up?
Yep.
I mean, we have 16 attendees. Let me see if we have.
Can you see it?
Yes,
Okay.
and I note that board member Kevin O'Keefe is in attendance as an attendee. Alexandra, can we promote Kevin to panelist? Is that something that we can do?
Yeah, give me one.
Thank you. Very big dog here with me. Okay. Oh, there you are. Hi, Kevin. Thank you very much. And I also note that we have in attendance several people from the community who I know are here to discuss the second item on our agenda, which is the smoke shop in a specific area, and more broadly, the issue in general of enforcement of cannabis laws in relation to kids. And we really are grateful for your presence and appreciate your patience for a few moments with our as we deal with what was earlier on our agenda, the issue of the school bus safety and the resolution that is now before us. So what I would like to do is two things. First, since we have with us we have with us two people whom we certainly want to recognize here. I'm going to ask former council member Ben Kallos, who sponsored this legislation in the city council, just briefly to describe the legislation and comment in any way that he wishes at this point. And then we have representatives from the Department of Education, who I know have brought a presentation with them that will be related to this issue, and we're going to ask them to speak next. But first, with gratitude, I'm happy to recognize former council member Ben Kallos. Welcome back to CB6, Ben. Thank you.
John Keller, I'll have to say I did miss it. I want to thank you for your service as chair of this committee and your previous service on the CEC for District 2. It was a pleasure to work with you over the previous 8 years. In 2019, I introduced Introduction 1724 of 2019 after a slate of very high-profile cars passing children, getting on and off yellow buses. People were going by at high rates of speed. People were driving in between the school buses and the entrances to the school. One incident or two involved people driving up on a sidewalk. It was caught on video, but the law did not allow for violations to be written based on video. The state of New York passed a change as part of their budget that allowed for the implementation of these systems and for municipalities to implement it. So I put in the introduction. We were able to pass it before the end of my term in 2021. We actually passed it on December 16th, 2019. Sorry, December 9th, 2021 is when it was sent to the mayor for the signature, and it aged into law on January 10th under the current mayoralty, January 10th, 2022. The legislation basically just says there should be a demonstration. The buses should have a camera on it that's enabled whenever the stop arm goes out, which is whenever a bus stops, and that they should be able to issue violations. It's a demonstration program. I actually think good legislation has a sunset if it isn't working. And the sunset date on the legislation is actually December 1st, 2024. So they have 2 years left to implement the program. And there are a lot of laws on the books that mayors and administrations may choose to follow or ignore. One of the other ones is school bus GPS. So you can actually know where your kids are. That is one de Blasio didn't want to do, and this administration has an opportunity to do. But that's the long and short of it. And my understanding is this mayor has no intention of actually following this law.
Okay, so we should amend our resolution to indicate that we're not urging him to sign it into the law, but would the proper word be implement or follow the law?
Either. And
Okay.
I think one piece I'll just note for the committee, it's up to the city to structure the contract however they wanted. When we drafted the legislation, we had different people with contracts reach out saying they wanted to structure it certain ways. A lot of the red light camera implementation in other jurisdictions is that the companies fund all the costs for the infrastructure and then get a piece of the tickets. I believe New York City's red light camera is we've always laid out the funds and then kept 100% of the profits. So there's two different models.
Okay, and Alexandra, can we vote after we've given committee members and the public an opportunity to speak? Can we vote on this resolution, or do we need to amend it right here? Can we amend it afterwards, or do we need to amend it now? I know the rules on the CEC, but I'm not sure what the rules are here on amending the language in the resolution.
I think if there's going to be some significant change, I'd recommend doing it now, just while
Okay.
everybody's here.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, just tell me if there's something.
let me
you want to
look
change,
at it. I'm just trying to read this here. Neil, you're more familiar with it. Could you please just suggest the resolves that or whereases that need to be amended here as quickly as possible, just to be consistent with what former council member Kalos just said to us.
Okay, so I would say the second resolved, that's not needed. We would get rid of that one.
Okay, so we are getting rid of line 58. Be it further resolved, urges New York City Adams immediately to sign into law, local law 10. Okay, good, thank you.
And then the resolve that is the last one here, where it says urges New York City Mayor Adams upon signing into local law. Obviously, we don't need that part now.
So we would just go right to identify the
Yes.
implementing agency responsible.
Yes.
So then we also need to change the delay in signing and implementing. So Manhattan Community Board 6 is concerned that the delay in implementing local law 10 is placing students who depend on the 9,000 bus routes operated by the New York City Department of Education at additional and unnecessary risk. And are there any other references to signing in there, Neil?
Alexandra, if you could just scroll up, yeah, just scroll up to the top and then just come down.
Thanking everyone for their patience.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I think we could agree that we've made the substantive changes, and if there is, as Alexandra said, a cosmetic change, that we could make it.
That 36 and 37, where it says whereas as of, yep, that right there.
That has to go.
Yes, because it says law remains unsigned.
Okay,
We
Thank
can
you.
remove that and just go down a little bit more. Look at the last one. Let's see. All right, that's it.
okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to ask, first of all, any members of I'm very grateful that the Department of Education has sent people from the Office of Pupil Transportation here, and they have a presentation to make, and we're very grateful to them, and they will talk about this. But I am going to ask for if members of the Youth and Education Committee have any comments or questions on the law, especially given that we have the sponsor of the law present here. Seeing no questions in relation to the law, I'm going to now move to the, did I see a hand go up or not? No? Okay.
Yeah, just one, I'm sorry, I missed this. Why is Adams, Mayor Adams opposed or stalling on this?
I'm very careful how the language I'm going to use here. We're not going to accuse him of stalling or being opposed, but we're just asking him to take a positive step, and perhaps the people from the Department of Education who are here could address why this has not been implemented yet. I mean, I'm sympathetic to the question, I guess, is what I want to say. Okay, so could the person from the Department of Education first of all, are there any other comments or questions from committee members? Excuse me. Okay, so Neil, could you introduce our attendees from the Department of Pupil Transportation, Office of Pupil Transportation of the Department of Education?
Yeah, so we have Anne, and I'm sorry if I say your surname incorrectly. Schwanker, would it be? Okay, so we have Anne Schwanker from the Pupil Department of Transportation.
Department
We
of
also,
Education, Transportation.
yes, we also have Brendan. I'm just looking at the names here. I think he was suggested. Yes, hi, how are you? Brendan is also here from the DOE. And I think we have one more person, right? Was it Diane? Hi, how are you? I didn't have a chance to speak with you. So we have 3 people here from the DOE, and I'm not sure, Anne, will you be giving the presentation?
Yes, I
Okay,
will.
first of all, Anne, thank you very much. And Alexandra, if you could put the slides up, they contain some, for me, after all these years, has been referenced of working in schools, some information that amazed me. So let's go ahead. And Anne is aware that we have some time constraints, but we're very grateful for her being here and for her colleagues being with her.
Yes, and thank you so much for inviting us. We're happy to be here and have some time to speak with all of you. So, we're the New York City Department of Education. We are referred to as the Office of Pupil Transportation. We provide busing, MetroCards, and all forms of transportation to the city of New York for the students. If you could go to slide 2, there's a little more substantive information I'll go to. So there's a quick overview. We provide transportation to all students in New York City, public, non-public, and charter school students. That spans both preschool and school age students through busing, as well as MetroCards, or for some students in special circumstances, transportation outside of the city through Long Island Railroad or PATH, other forms of public transportation that go out of the city. And just, overall, our mission is to ensure safety and that there's reliable transportation to and from school. And for the purposes of this presentation, we're focusing on the safety part. Go to the next slide. So just to give you a scope of, the size of our fleet and the size of our operation, which I think is an important factor generally, but also specific to this, implementation. We're going to talk about our fleet, which is roughly 11,000 vehicles. That's the largest ground fleet in North America, and it's twice the size of the MTA fleet. We provide bus service for public, non-public, and charters, and students also receive busing within the 5 boroughs as well as outside the 5 boroughs in Westchester County, Long Island, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And just some more quick stats. You can see a little more about our vehicles. Again, close to that 11,000 number. You can see a breakdown of our schools, our students by types of school that we're serving. So largely public schools, followed by non-publics, and then charters. Our school bus vendors, we have over 70 contracted school bus vendors. So just a reminder that that fleet of 11,000 is served by over 70 different smaller companies. So we rely on their support and, you know, to work in collaboration with us to make sure we can provide transportation to this whole city and ensure their safety. And then there's over 800,000 Metro cards distributed every year. All right, and just to look a little bit at Manhattan, since you guys are all representing a Manhattan Community Board District, we have around 9,000 students using Curb to School service. That service that's provided for students that need more support. They may need a specialized vehicle, or they may have a mandate on their individual education plan that dictates certain needs. So we provide that type of service to them. And of those 9,000 students, around 3,500 of them are in District 2. And then there's a little under 8,000 students that use Stop to School service, and that's going to be a little more of that, more like a shuttle where students meet at a shared stop and get on. And of those 8,000, roughly 3,600 of them are in District 2. So this slide, we provide this slide in all of our presentations. I think it's timely in this one, especially as former council member Kayla's already mentioned this project. So thanks for bringing that up. We have a huge project underway to modernize our transportation system. Part of that is dictated by, is related to bills that are out requiring GPS on the vehicles for tracking purposes. But this project is definitely, that's a huge piece of it, and providing us with the ability to let our families and schools know where our buses are and where our children are for safety purposes. There's also a lot more to it. It's also going to provide a family-facing app, a school-facing app, and a revamp for our routing system. So this is a very comprehensive project that we've been rolling out over the last couple of years, and we're continuing to work on that. It's a huge focus for our office, and we're very happy to be doing that with a partnership with VIA, who's a leader in transportation technology. And the focus there is really to provide more transparency, which is part of the safety concerns, right? We want to make sure we know where our kids are and to ensure that they are safe, and more efficient busing to provide better service. All right, and this is just a little discussion of where we are with that project. Currently, we are in the process of doing a full rollout to all schools in Community School District 26 in Queens. So, that's a positive step for us. So we're just kind of really working to roll this out and get it operational. And that's an important step towards being able to provide it to the whole city. And hopefully after successful deployment and operation in that district, we'll be able to expand to other districts and schools as quickly as possible. And we'll work with superintendents to determine details and timeline for that. All right, and this is just a summary. I think you all are very aware of what this local law is at this point, since we've had that lovely review at the beginning. But that's kind of the information that we pulled on it. And then specific to the actions that have been taken from our office, you can go to the next slide.
Could I, go ahead, let you finish first of all. Excuse me. Pardon me.
Okay, if there's, sorry, you go ahead.
No, I think this is the question I was going to ask, which was asked by one of our committee members. Why there's a perception that this is being delayed. And I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. So we'll talk more about that right now.
Okay.
So, let's think largely about the history here too. This is in 2019. And at that point we did put in some work and work very closely with our partners in other parts of DOE and City Hall to try to figure out how we were going to meet and respond to this local law. And part of that work was an RFP for stop arm camera procurement. I think, we're doing the best that we can right now to continue that work. I think there was definitely delays, related to the pandemic, and it's been a very challenging time for the Office of Field Transportation, a time when we're really focusing on trying to provide as much service as possible and make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students. And this is also very important, and their safety is also very important. So now we're looking to sort of refocus on that. And of course, we always want to be in compliance with all local laws. So we're working with City Hall and our partner agencies to discuss possibilities. And we're hoping to, have something to share in the next coming weeks, but we really have been doing a lot of review of those options and trying to revisit the work that was done in 2019 with that RFP to ensure that we can meet the safety concerns and be in compliance with this law. And at DOE, we do think that this is important. Of course, we're very concerned with the safety of our children And we do see the importance of ensuring compliance to laws that would provide our students with safety when they're onboarding and offboarding buses. I, as a parent, know when I go drop off my kid, I see the school bus there, and our drop-off point is actually on a road that has 2 lanes of traffic. So when I see that stop arm camera go out, I'm watching those other, looking at other drivers and making sure, did you stop? Because my kid is gonna, he's not getting off the bus, but he'll get out of the car shortly, and I want to make sure that's safety. So we do see the importance of this law. We have taken previous steps towards it. I think it has been delayed, but not for lack of trying. And we're working very closely with City Hall and, trying to figure out what the next steps are so that we can be in compliance. And of course, safety is always going to be the top priority. And then we just have some questions here that are less related to this and more just about some changes in our structure for OPT related to the how we would process our customer service calls and things like that, which have a little less relevance. But if you guys have any questions there, we can definitely look it over too.
First of all,
Yeah.
we see the contacts there, and this information will all be on our website. I'd like to thank you very much for coming here, because you knew you were going to get some tough questions, which and that the whole point of this resolution is to be a little tough here, in that we want to be heard on this. I'm speaking here as a parent who used to, somewhat against the better judgment now as I look back on it, we had a District 75 school, co-located with us at PS 59, where my kids went to elementary school, and members of this committee might have heard this story already. And another parent and I used to stand in the middle of the street when the D75 kids were let off the bus, which had to let them off on the right side of the street, and the school was on the left as the traffic was moving. And we literally stood in the middle of the street, and when cars would start to move to the stop arm, which was probably not a wise thing to do, but we did it. My friend and my friend was a former federal prosecutor, and I sort of said, I wonder what's going to happen if one of them just bumps him. But anyway, so we are very, very focused on, this, and we want to get use this to nudge the mayor's office and the chancellor to implement the law, or as Ben put it earlier, follow the law and obey the law. So we will be doing that, and we appreciate your being here and your willingness to take direct questions from us. I also realize, as chair of the committee, that there are many issues related to buses, heating, and whether they're hot and warm in the winter, and comfortable in the summer, and whether they're on time, and whether they actually pick the kids up when they're supposed to and drop them off when they're supposed to. And those are other issues that we'll be taking up. But the safety issue, especially since we have 3 council members in our district, who sponsored in our zone, community board zone. We had Councilmember Rivera and Councilmember Powers were all co-sponsors of this bill, along with Councilmember Kalos, and then of course Adonis Rodriguez, who is now head of the Department of Transportation. So we're hoping to get a little attention to this issue as we move ahead. And I have been in close communication with our very capable Department Transportation Committee head, Brian Bud Newman, and we're actually looking very favorably at the VIA program, and we're trying to find a way for our 2 committees to cooperate on a resolution on that as we move ahead. So now I will take questions first of all, from committee members, and I know that Stuart has his hand up. Hi, Stuart.
Hi, so are there going to be signs on the buses warning motorists that they'll be on camera if they
Good
bus?
question. That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't know the details of how it would be communicated to drivers that they were going to be on camera, but I'm sure it's something we would definitely have to take into consideration as we're looking into the implementation of that. There definitely has to be some awareness of what's happening, and make sure that that they're aware that they could be ticketed. I'm sure it will be aligned with how red light cameras are used throughout the city.
And I'll ask Councilmember Kalos to address that as well, because I know I think privacy issues were one of the things that you folks considered as you were going through this whole legal process, way of implementing this or of getting this intro through. So I guess is that what we were concerned about, was that people could be on camera and that they should know they're on camera.
Actually, that wasn't my main point. My main point is that if you know that you're going to be photographed, you might not pass the school bus in the first place.
That's a good point. That's the hope of it. Yeah.
I see, as a preventative measure, right?
Yeah. Matt, I noticed you have your hand up.
Thank you for the presentation. I just have a few general questions. One is, are the non-public schools parochial schools and private schools? I'm just wondering what that entails.
Yeah, it covers a range of different types of schools, both parochial and just non-public in general. We, it would depend on, we provide different types of service, but it just spans all types of schools.
Can you just clarify for me what falls under the purview of non-public besides parochial?
So it's going to be any school that's not an NYC DOE school or a state-funded charter school. If it's not a charter and it's not a non-public, not a public school, meaning, part of the Department of Education's directly organized schools, then it's going to be what we consider a non-public school. So it's going to be Catholic schools. It's going to be any non-public school, just not a charter, and not a D1 through 32 or 75 DOE school.
Okay. And one other question I have are, what are the general requirements for students to be eligible for busing?
Sure. So there's a variety of different things that could, make a student eligible for busing. The top priority for us is students that have it mandated, right? So if a student has an individual education plan that dictates that they should receive transportation, that's going to be one of the highest priorities. There's also students that receive it through an impartial hearing order, or because they have a 504 mandate for it, which is related to a medical condition. And when you put those, that's one bucket. And then there's other students that receive it based on grade and distance. So if you are in a specific grade, you're a certain distance from the school, and your school is offering service, then you would be eligible for that. And it would also, parents then have a choice if they want to choose MetroCard or busing, if they're eligible and the service is provided.
And is it a minimum distance or a maximum distance?
So there's, you have to be at least half a mile. And then depending on the grade, there's a couple of different buckets, but you can, so if it's grades K to 3, it's up to a mile. And then if it's 3 to 6, it's a mile to a mile and a half. And past a mile and a half, you would be eligible, but not beyond a certain distance. That would impact the feasibility of providing the routing. So any school can't have a stop that's beyond 5 miles, because it then impacts their ability to provide service that is, of quality.
All right, thank you. And one last question is, one thing I was curious about is we have buses going to New Jersey and out of state. That was one thing I caught in the presentation.
Yeah, I know it is something that many people aren't aware of. So we do have students that in our city that may have an educational need that's higher, and we're not able to provide them with that service within the city. So they might attend a school outside of the city that offers services that they need. And so in order to ensure that they are receiving all of those, specialized services, we provide busing out of the city.
All right, thank you very much. Those are all my questions.
John, I think you might be on mute if you're talking to us.
Oh, excuse me. Are there any other questions? Thanking Matt and Stuart. And are there any other questions from members of the committee? And I can see the attendees from the public. If any member of the public has a question or wishes to raise an issue regarding the resolution on which we're about to vote, please just raise your hand. I think I know why most of you are here, but I just want to be sure. Okay. So seeing no further questions, as chair,
Sorry, John, to interrupt. There is a hand raised.
Oh, hi. Oh, excuse me. First of all, I was going to recognize them as we moved into the next session. And so I would like to recognize Ben Morden, who is president of Community Board 6 and not of Community Board 6, the Community Education Council District 2. Ben, I made a big mistake there. Community Education Council District 2. And could we promote Ben to panelist and leave him here, given his role in the community? Thank you. Hey, Ben. You're on. And you're muted.
Just 1 second here. Thank you.
Hey, Ben.
All right. Hi. I just had a quick question. Just actually today I drove past PS 116 and there was actually 2 buses in a row that did not have any stop arms. So, and there it's kind of dangerous. It's like what you mentioned earlier, John. The students get off on the right side, on the passenger side, but which is onto oncoming traffic. Obviously, it's stopped, but when you don't have a stop arm, you know, cars were creeping by. So I think it'd be useful to. I don't know what the requirements are for buses. Or do they have to be a certain size before they have a stop arm? But and if that's not the case, I think all buses should have the stop arms, especially if they're going to have the cameras too. So.
Yeah, no, they're definitely all supposed to have a stop arm. So if, you know, either if the stop arm wasn't present or wasn't, you know, in use, both of those would be an issue for us that we definitely want to look into. So we can definitely, you know, look and see what routes we were running there and check in with our vendors to make sure that they're aware of all the safety requirements. Because of course, we want to make sure they're using the tools that they're, you know, they have at their disposal to ensure safety for students, especially in the circumstance like what you're describing, where there's multiple lanes of traffic and students are crossing.
There's
it sounds
one
like
lane.
a time we definitely. Okay.
It was one, but they were
getting out and
creeping.
having
They were
to
creeping by, and I've noticed in other locations too that not all buses have stop arms. So I think an audit should be done to ensure this in conjunction with what you're doing, because this, you know, it'd be great to have, you know, the GPS, the video, the camera, but the stop arms, you know, that's item 1 in my book. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely look into that and make sure that our fleet is, you know, is definitely meeting the minimum requirements, and also that they're using them when they're supposed to, for sure. So thank you for letting us know about that. We can definitely look into it. You said it was PS 116, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take a picture next time.
Thanks. And Alexander, can we allow Ben
Let
to
us know.
remain, as given his role in the community, or is that not whatever the rules are, we'll follow. But and I had another question here that just came to my mind, and that is, I made a note to myself here. When did the RFP go to the chief procurement officer?
So the last efforts that I'm aware of were from 2019. And I would have to, you know, find out a little bit more about what our current state is. But I know, you know, I think a lot of things as we went into the pandemic, you know, priorities shifted a little bit, and we were very focused on supporting our kids. So I'm not sure entirely where it all ended, but I can definitely find out more for you and follow up.
Yeah, we would appreciate that, and what the status of the procurement is now. Okay, because you know, as Ben has indicated, and I've indicated by putting my body in front of cars moving, you know, to protect District 75 kids, not even kids in my own school. You know, this is a very important issue, and we're really trying to elevate it here through this resolution. And we're aware that resolutions actually goes somewhere in City Hall, and we're going to make sure this one gets has some attention paid to it. And I'll personally have my eye out.
Yeah, and we definitely appreciate hearing from all of you about that, and you know, hearing your concerns, and of course we want to ensure the safety as well. So we're
I
definitely
know that.
You know, on our plates.
I know there's
we're working on it. I know that it's been.
I get that, and during COVID you had a lot of things to worry about. I understand that, and so. But I think it's time for this to jump up a little bit, and that's what we're going to say, I think, here. Okay, as chair, and I'm very aware of the time here because we have a bunch of people who want to address our next issue, but I want to make sure, first of all, does anyone else, either on our committee or in attendance, have any questions related to this issue? Seeing no other questions or issues related to the issue, as chair, I'm not allowed to move to make a motion, but would a member of the Youth and Education Committee please, if they wish, make a motion regarding this resolution?
I'll call the question.
Great. And does anyone second that?
Second.
Okay, so the motion is made by Stuart and seconded by Neil Barclay. And now I'm going to ask Alexandra, could you call the roll on this issue, on this resolution?
Yep. We will now take a vote on the resolution by roll call. When your name is called, you can unmute yourself and answer how you vote on this resolution. One moment. Neil Barclay,
In favor?
John Keller,
In favor?
Stu Desser,
In favor?
Aisha Siddiqui,
In favor.
and Matthew Weintraub.
In favor.
So the resolution passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions, and 0 non-entitled.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Thank you, Anne, and thank you also, Brandon. And I've got some noise in the background here for which I apologize. And your colleague from Diane and Brandon and thank you very much for being here this evening. And I know it's always tough when you come to get tough questions, but you know that's why we're all here, and we're always polite. But we're really just, you can mention that we are definitely going to be pushing this issue, and we're also going to come out, I think, working with our transportation committee very favorably about the whole program with VIA, which we're very excited about. Okay. So thank you. You're
Yes,
off the hook, and I
absolutely.
really want to express my deep appreciation to former council member Ben Kalos for being here this evening and for helping us so much. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you all.
Right.
You're allowed to go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Should
All right.
appreciate the time.
Thank you
Now-
so much for the time.
Well, thank you. And now I'd like to move on to our second agenda item, which is and I'm just going to mute myself here one. Which is an issue has been raised related to smoke shops located near schools in Manhattan Community District 6. And I'm going to say a word or two here just as we begin on this. And I would like to thank Kevin O'Keefe, the member of Community Board 6, who elevated this issue to our attention, and specifically, I see in the attendees here present, Ali Ryan, whom I've known for a while, who contacted me at Kevin's suggestion. And I know that Kyoko Ishida is also been very involved, as well as others who are in attendance here this evening. I'd like to make a couple of points very quickly. The first is, this is not an anti-cannabis thing. All right, I wrote and co-sponsored the resolution of Community Board 6 that supported Liz Kruger's cannabis legalization. So we don't want this characterized in any way as any cannabis movement here in any sort, and that would be an unfair characterization of what we're doing here. The second thing is that we're very realistic that this is going on around us. If you're a parent of teenagers, as I happen to be, you know that they get access, they find a way to have access to cigarettes, vaping, and other substances. And we know that's going to happen. What we're trying to do here is send a message to the people who operate, begin the process of sending a message to the people who operate these stores. First of all, that they be doing so in accord with the law. And secondly, that we're really going to be focused on whether or not they're selling to minors. I brought with me a picture that I'm just not going to waste your time looking at, but it's a picture of a bag of gummy bears, gummy candy, and you look at the bottom of that, and it looks like candy, and you really want to eat the candy, and you look at the bottom and it says THC 600 milligrams. So, which is, that's a lot of THC, right? In a bag of candy. So it's clearly being marketed to kids. And there it is. And I got that from a person who was a minor, and they're protected. So therefore, I'm not going to identify that person. But trust me, I'm sure of my source. So anyway, we just want to make that point, and we support the mayor's initiative to engage people who were incarcerated for illegal possession of small amounts of cannabis. None of this is against any of that, but this is to be sure that people know that we are going to be following this matter regarding whether stores that sell these products are following the law. And then, speaking of following the law, we have here with us Brad Usher, the Chief of Staff of State Senator Liz Krueger. And Brad, first of all, thank you for sitting with us through the first 50 minutes of our meeting. I hope it was interesting. And would you just update people a bit on how the law, I know you and I have discussed this, specifically affects schools? In other words, what does it say about the location of school, the shops that sell cannabis in relation to schools? And thank you.
Sure. And the first thing I'll say is anybody who is operating a store selling cannabis with a THC-based cannabis as opposed to CBD is operating illegally at this point, because any cannabis store will have to be licensed by the Office of Cannabis Management, and there are no licensed stores at this point. They actually, yesterday, the Office of Cannabis Management just issued its first 37 retail cannabis, conditional adult use retail cannabis licenses. And obviously it's going to be a while before those stores actually open. But so all of these folks that are operating now are operating illegally. And that's a problem, and I'll get to how we're trying to deal with that. But the bag that you showed, for instance, would be illegal under New York State's law, because you're not allowed to have any product that appeals to children in any way. And I don't think anybody would be able to make an argument that that particular product does not appeal to children. The law also mimics SLA law in banning cannabis retail operations within 500 feet of a school, 200 feet of a church. So those stores that are located across the street from schools and churches are operating illegally. And the Office of Cannabis Management has been working with local police, the sheriff's office, and also the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, because they are the city agency that regulates smoke shops. And so those are all working together on this, but there are also some law changes that are needed, which I'll go into in a second. But the first thing that anybody should do when they identify one of these stores is report it to OCM. And if it's all right, I'm going to plop an email address in the chat, which is enforcement@ocm.ny.gov, because that's the way to report that. Is that okay? Okay. So let me do that. And I'm also, and you're also free to report them to me, because I can follow up with OCM as well. So what they need and what I need is an address. And it's certainly worth highlighting that address is within 500 feet of a school, because or across the street from a school, as you've indicated, some of these places are, because that, again, may prioritize the places in terms of sort of the triage about this. What OCM has been doing is basically sending cease and desist letters to all of these places. So they are on notice if as soon as OCM knows about it, that these folks they are on notice that they're operating illegally, and that will impact their ability to ever get a license to operate if they continue to do so, as well as working with the local law enforcement. John, do you want me to keep going, or do you want, I can go into sort of what we're trying to do on the legal side to give them more teeth, but that would be my next. You're muted.
Just to reemphasize that, a shop operating and selling cannabis within 500 feet of a school, you can't do it. And, so that's going to affect a lot of shops that think they're opening, from what I can see. But would you have one or two other, because Brad, you're a fount of information on this, but would you have one or two other points you'd like to make here, or do you want to just take questions?
Sure. I'll just make one other point. So
Please.
It's obviously a problem that these places are operating illegally. So we're trying to, we need to figure out how to make enforcement more effective than it has been up to now. And Senator Krueger actually introduced a bill in the spring that gave additional powers to OCM and tax and finance. We'd originally thought we could just use tax and finance in a similar way that we use them for untaxed cigarettes, which they can go in and seize. They can put all sorts of penalties on folks. But they've said they need more power. So we're giving them more power. We're also giving OCM the power to seize, and we're creating some new penalties, both civil and criminal, in that legislation. Now, that legislation passed the Senate, but not the Assembly. We are now, Senator Krueger was actually on the phone earlier this week with Crystal Peoples-Stokes, who was our Assembly sponsor on the original cannabis bill. And there's agreement that we need to get this done, and we need to get it done soon. So the goal really is to get legislation that will put some more teeth in enforcement passed very early in the next legislative session. So I guess that's probably the last and perhaps most important thing to say in terms of what we are looking for at the future. And you're muted.
Who is sponsoring that legislation?
Well, right now, Senator Krueger is sponsoring it. It is possible that it will end up, it's highly likely it will end up being Senator Krueger and Assemblymember Crystal Peoples-Stokes, because they were the leads on the other legislation. But those things will be worked out in the days ahead. And the Office of Cannabis Management is very directly involved in this legislation. We're trying to get both things that both houses of the legislature can be comfortable with, but also things that OCM actually thinks will work from an enforcement angle to actually be able to shut these things down. And I guess I'll make one more point.
Please.
OCM has a very strong interest in getting these places shut down, because they are going to be competing with the legal cannabis that can't do all sorts of things that these folks are doing, like sell products in those kinds of packages, be located in certain locations, and we'll also have to deal with all sorts of regulations. So having these gray market operators is a problem for the success of the legitimate licensed establishments as well. So everybody's sort of on board, and we just need to figure out how to get these places addressed appropriately.
Thank you, Brad. And if you could stay around a little bit, I'm sure there'll be questions. And next, I would like to recognize Katie Loeb, the Chief of Staff of Councilwoman Carolina Rivera, in whose district many of the parents who are here tonight to speak live. And Katie, I just ask you to make any comments that you wish. I know we've talked about this, but please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you, Brad. That was such a great overview of everything that's happening on the state side with marijuana. And of course, there's a very big racial equity and justice component to this law that really makes New York laws special. And the unlicensed selling really undercuts that. So it is a big priority for our office. And we've been working really collaboratively with our colleagues on the state around the cannabis specific. And there's also a problem with people selling unlicensed tobacco. City Council in the previous session capped licenses so that you couldn't, to kind of limit the proliferation of this kind of, tobacco smoke shop store that was going on. And unfortunately, we now see people who are just operating with no license, including the store in question, which our office, along with Councilmember Keith Powers' office, has been working with the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection on this location specifically, but then on locations more broadly about enforcing the unlicensed sale of tobacco. This is not the first instance of a school in our district having one of these shops adjacent to it. The other one, it took many months, but we did get it closed down. It took a multi-agency task force in order to address those issues. And so our office is also conducting a survey of the smoke shops that we've received complaints about, both cannabis and tobacco, and we're rating them by distance from schools. And we're working on finding an effective enforcement plan now with the rules and regulations we have in place. And we're also hoping to see if we can find some, legislative things that we can do on the city level. It's very clear that at the state level, people are taking it as seriously, and there's already some legislation there that we're very happy to support at the city level.
And thank you very much. And that's why I made the point at the beginning that this is not any cannabis, that we completely support the mayor's effort to give these licenses to people who were incarcerated for possession. And anyone watching this on YouTube, that is not our agenda. Our agenda is to protect kids and make sure the law is followed. So I'm going to, before we move on, the next thing that I would do is ask if are there any other representatives of public officials? Eddie, I see you're here, but I guess Katie is speaking for you, I imagine, or do you wish to make comment? Okay.
Nope, Katie got it all. Thank you.
I'm stealing his thunder, but you guys are going to hear from him so much more.
Okay, and we really appreciate that. And I also want to compliment, and Keith isn't here tonight, but I really want to compliment Senator Kruger's office, Councilwoman Rivera's office, Councilmember Powers' office, Assemblymember Epstein's office. They have all been very engaged and very involved in this, and I want to make sure that we give them credit on this. So the next proper thing to do here as chair is for me to ask members of the committee, first of all, if you have any comments or questions for Brad or Katie, who have spoken. Then I will, okay, Matt, I see your hand, go. And Stuart. So Matt, I saw your hand first, so you go.
Yeah, really quick. I was just curious. Maybe I missed it. What was the location in question that you were talking about, Katie?
Oh, this one is on 28th Street, right across from the Epiphany School.
Okay, and we're trying to be one of the points I wanted to make at the beginning is that we're not focusing on one school here. This is happening in a lot of schools. That's why neither Katie nor I mentioned it initially, because we don't want to stigmatize any one school, because this is happening, and I'm sure we're going to hear from the public who's been patiently waiting. Stuart.
Our resolution is only about the distance from schools, right? It's not about unlicensed selling or anything like that?
We do not have a resolution at this point. What I would like to do is I'm going to work. We have Elby Barroso here, who is chair of the Health and Human Services Committee. And we have, I know Claire Brennan is extremely interested, chair of the Business Affairs and Licensing Committee, of which Kevin is nodding, is also a member with me. And we're going to put our heads together very soon and try to come up with a joint effort on this. And then we want to reach out to other community boards as well and really take the lead on this. But 500 feet is 500 feet, and get out your tape measures, and if you play golf, get out your GPS and measure the darn thing, and see where it is.
So let me just follow on that. Is there any kind of grandfather issue that we have to deal with? Like, are there businesses that would, like smoke shops that are within that distance, that were legal at some point? Or
Brad, I'm going to have to defer to you on that.
Well, I can't speak to I won't pretend to be an expert on the city council. I do know that the city has a cap. there's nobody who's legal selling cannabis. So if they're a smoke shop selling cannabis, they're not allowed to do that within 500 feet, and there's no grandfathering because cannabis wasn't legal before. I think that most of the ones that have opened up since the cap was instituted, you know, they're violating the cap. I mean, so I don't know, Katie, if you have.
Just to be clear, you understand the question. If there's a shop that would naturally sell this, but they were only selling cigarettes or something like that up till now, could they have been legal within 500 feet?
By naturally sell, you mean cannabis?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
If there's
So no, because nobody can sell cannabis unless they have a license. There is nobody who had the ability to sell cannabis prior to us passing the law legally. So to sell cannabis legally, you have to acquire a license, and nobody has a license at this point. The only exception being, of course, medical providers, and I don't think any of them are located because they were not allowed to locate within 500 feet of a school when they first opened up. So those are the only people who are licensed to sell cannabis now.
right,
And
I'm not asking my question right. There are like a smoke shop that sells cigarettes and you know other paraphernalia that would they have been legal within 500 feet? Because those are obviously a business that would naturally want to sell, you know, be licensed to sell cannabis.
But they're not going to be able to get a license for that location. If I can't deal with the tobacco issue, but if you're asking if nobody has when they have to apply for a license, they will have to say my location is X, and the law specifically bans selling cannabis from location X. There's nothing that says a smoke shop gets a privilege in terms of getting a cannabis license. In fact, the criteria are the social equity criteria, such as formerly incarcerated people, and whoever applies will have to say, we are going to locate our store here. It's not necessarily a pre-existing store. It could be, but if you've got a location within 500 feet of a school, that will not be granted a license under the law. Just like you can't get a liquor license. If I own a restaurant within 500 feet of a school, and I'm not serving wine, and I decide I want to serve wine, I won't be able to get a liquor license from the SLA.
Right. And Brad, I think this might help clarify the question. So from what I understand, there were 150 licenses distributed, and each of those licenses will be tied to a storefront determined by OCM, correct?
Yeah. Right. They've only issued the first 37, but yes, I mean, individuals will have some ability to choose their own location, though many of them will be chosen by OCM directly, but all the locations will have to comply with the cannabis law, which, like the SLA, like the alcohol beverage control law, bans establishments within 200 feet of churches or religious institutions or 500 feet of schools.
Okay, I would like to move on now. Stuart, does that address your question, first of all, just to be sure?
Yes.
Thank you. And we have here Elvie Barroso, who is chair of our Health and Human Services Committee. And Elvie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question to Brad. So if they are operating illegally, what is taking so long to close them?
The problem is that people can send them cease and desist letters and issue violations and things like that. But particularly, we work closely with Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, like Katie has, and there's a process, sort of a due process that takes a long time to move through for some of these places. It's also true that the police have been reluctant to go too far on this because basically they don't want to go beyond their powers under the law where cannabis is now legal. It is true that it is still illegal to sell cannabis to minors at any level, and there's criminal penalties for selling cannabis. But if you're selling a small amount to to a non-minor, the penalty is fairly minimal and the cops aren't really going to go after folks on that, it's clear. And they haven't been able to prove how much cannabis folks are having. So that is why we need to change the law. But again, the goal here is not to have police be the lead people doing this for historical reasons about cannabis enforcement and the way it has been enforced primarily against Black and brown people, which is the reason we passed the law to begin with. So that's why we're trying to use tax and finance and the Office of Cannabis Management as the primary enforcement agencies, although they will be working with law enforcement as necessary. But it is a problem, and that's why we need legislation to fix it.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, and we will certainly be on top of this through Senator Kruger's office and Assemblymember Epstein's office as well. Okay. And I see we still have a lot of attendees who've been very patient, but Kevin, you certainly were instrumental in bringing this to the fore. Would you like to make a brief comment now, or do you want to wait, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, I'll try to make it brief. Thank you, John. Really just thank you, not just for the floor, but for being a steady voice for a long time on concerns related to smoke shops and also illegal sales and marketing of products to kids. I will second your comment that this is not an anti-cannabis thing. And I appreciate Katie's comments, and I second them as well about equity and justice. I happen to be the parent of 3 school-age children, ages 12 to 15, and I'm also a youth sports coach in the district, including at a school. I've spoken with some of you here tonight about some aspects of this issue. One issue that needs to be addressed is those retail stores that sell products to those not old enough to purchase the products. Now, many students know which shops, for example, a certain deli, where they can purchase alcohol or products with THC with no questions asked. Just as a reminder, 21 is the legal age in New York to consume alcohol and to possess and use cannabis. I will wrap, but it'll be with a question or two. Some parents have already started to ask me, maybe for Chief of Staff Usher, if you could be, first of all, more specific about where the licensees can sell cannabis outside of the 500 rule. For example, one licensee yesterday, granted a license yesterday, is Housing Works. Can it immediately sell at the Housing Work location at 23rd Street near 3rd Avenue, 1 block south of Baruch College?
There is a process for community boards to weigh in on licenses. There's nothing that says they cannot sell within. There's nothing that in the law that would prohibit them from locating 1 block south of Baruch College. Although the local community, whether it's the community board or outside of New York City, the town village, has the opportunity to comment on the license applications and the locations, and the SL or the Office of Cannabis Management needs to take that into account in a similar way they do with alcohol licenses. So that's the answer. I don't believe that one can make the argument that they shouldn't be able to locate next to Baruch, though I would say, that would be, Baruch has many people who are over 21 who attend it, so I'm not clear that would be as powerful an argument.
Right, and I'm sorry if I put maybe too much emphasis on the Baruch, more just giving an address of where it was. Yeah. I know that some parents have asked about it, and maybe they were concerned that it's a college. I know that Baruch High School is 3 blocks away. I see a question, if I couldn't take the liberty, John, in Q&A, and it could be because it's the same question I have. It's from a parent I know, Lisa DeVito, and it's, can you confirm that nursery schools, private licensed daycares, et cetera, are included within the 500-foot limit?
So I would have to look, I cannot right now, I can get back to you on that. I believe they are, but I don't want to misspeak, and I would need to look up the definition of an educational institution in the law. So,
and the last question I have, and if you answered this already, I apologize. I don't think you did. As far as where the storefronts that cannabis will be legally sold, will there be advance notice of where that will be happening?
Yes. So there is a notification requirement, in the SLA, or the Office of Cannabis Management. Actually, yesterday they had their their board meeting where they issued these 37 licenses, they also issued the preliminary or the draft regulations for the general adult use resale license, and they put up their notification form, which is what an applicant needs to provide to the local community, whether that is the community board or outside of New York City, town, city, village, that they are planning to locate in this facility, this location. That gives the locality an opportunity to comment on that proposed location. And the regulations, which are up on the Office of Cannabis Management website, are definitely worth looking at because there's a 60-day comment period. I was actually at Community Board 6's Health, Aging and Social Services Committee yesterday, and I know that they had a lot of interest in going through those regs and perhaps commenting on what whether the notice requirement gave enough time to local community boards, whether other things like that you may have an interest in, because obviously the law is one thing, but the regs are going to be what determine a lot of the specifics. You will have to be notified. Localities have the ability to regulate time, place, and manner, but they cannot put undue regulations that I can't remember the exact legalese there, but there are limits to how much they can regulate it. I did see, I was looking through the regs earlier today, and there's a requirement, for instance, that a community couldn't say that you could argue, put in a rule that you couldn't have locations within 1,000 feet of each other in a city of 20,000 or more, which is obviously New York City, but you couldn't put a larger distance requirement, for instance. That's one thing that is in the regs that folks might want to comment on. And so a city can pass a law saying that they're not allowed in this zone or not allowed in that zone, but then on every individual license, they will go before either the relevant local agency, which in New York City is community boards, for comment, which then the Office of Cannabis Management has to evaluate and respond to in their decision as to whether to grant a license or not.
Okay, thank you. And I know that's something that we're working on with Claire Brennan and the Business Affairs and Licensing Committee, on which Kevin is also a member. I would like to, first of all, again, thank you, Brad, and Kevin, and and Katie. We have very patient members of the public here, and I do notice in the Q&A that we have a couple of questions from one person. If Elisa DeVito wishes to speak, raise your hand, and we will unmute you and bring you into the conversation. If you don't, then I'll open it up to others. Okay, so let's if others wish to speak, I see a couple of hands raised, and I'm going to recognize Ali Ryan because she raised a lot of this to my attention this week, and I see Ali is in here. Hi, Ali, good to see you.
Hi,
Thanks.
John. Thank you. It's good to see you too. And I know several other people on Zoom, so hello to y'all. So my name's Ali Ryan, and last month a smoke shop opened directly across the street from my daughter's middle school. This particular smoke shop's interior was painted with colorful cartoon characters. It was clearly designed to market towards children. Mom, friends, and I measured the distance to be less than 80 feet as the crow flies from entrance to entrance. I have learned since then from our elected officials that the smoke shop in question does not have a tobacco license nor an e-cigarette license and has received violations. This week in particular, the bongs and drug paraphernalia that were on one wall have been removed from the displaying cabinets to present itself as a convenience shop where you can buy candy and snacks. So I have a question. Do smoke shops selling drug paraphernalia such as bongs and pipes need a license? And if they do, what type of license? My present concern is that this shop may never apply for a cannabis license and will sell drugs on the side because of the proliferation of smoke shops that have been created as a gray market. As I bicycle around, I've seen other smoke shops masquerading as convenience stores across the street of schools. So I know my daughter's school situation is not unique, but it is disconcerting to me to see smoke shops now being designed to market to children. I like CB6 Education Committee to consider asking for a resolution calling on City Council and our state elected officials to create legislation that property owners and landlords cannot rent to smoke shops within 500 feet of a school. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Ally. And that's exactly the sort of thing that I want to collaborate with Elvie Barroso and Claire Brennan, who can't be here tonight, but who is deeply committed to this issue as well. And who we want these licenses to come through the community board and through business affairs and licensing. Thank you. I'm going to move on here. I see another familiar name over here who's been engaged in this. Kyoko Ishida, could you, Alexandra, could we bring Kyoko into the, you do that quickly, Alexandra. Pretty good. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Kyoko.
Hi, John. Thank you for having me. Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much, Katie. I see Brad, Eddie. Thank you so much for being here and all of your advices. So I echo, what Ali said and Kevin said. I am not here to stop this train that's already moving. I'm here as a parent of two elementary school age children. I'm not going to talk about one particular shops, but everywhere, I hear other parents in conversation saying, oh, these shops are popping up everywhere. And my answer is they shouldn't be popping up everywhere, let alone across from school, anywhere near the schools. And how, I'm here to ask you to help us to make sure that these things don't happen anywhere near any schools. That's my ultimate goal. I am not here to stop this train, but I don't want any of these stores opening up, whether it's smoke shops or marijuana dispensaries. And also I'd like to bring up to another thing is trucks, these trucks that are selling marijuana, those candies that John shows. They are selling these things out of trucks. You can easily see them. They're often out. They have displays out with little tables. They have popsicles in forms of popsicles. And of course, I walk everywhere with my children. My kids see gummies, the popsicles, they want them. And I have to explain to them every single time. And this is happening within a few blocks where I live in Murray Hill. There are smoke shops and they have signs out saying gummies, and my kids have reaction too. So clearly they are targeting children. This is Joe Camel situation. Many of these shops have, just like Ali said, Pac-Man characters, specifically the Simpsons characters. They have them on the walls. If you're interested, I can send you photos. I have two pictures of two separate shops that have very similar, like Pac-Man and Simpsons character, things like that. So to me, they're clearly targeting people that are under 21. So the trucks, who's going to be regulating them? There's an incident, I'm not going to name a school, but there's an incident where a parent told me it took them a long time to get rid of a truck parked across from an elementary school. A police would come, they would drive by, They go around the blocks for 15 minutes, come right back. So who, who's going to be regulating that kind of situation? Clearly, they are operating without licensing. I'm here to urge the elected officials to have a clear-cut resolution to protect our children. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your advocacy. And clearly, that is very much on our mind, and very much what Elvie and Claire and I want to get done. I mean, we need to work through a process in the board, but we clearly want to have a resolution, a strong resolution, but a well-informed one. There are so many different angles, as Stuart's question pointed out, and as Kevin's question pointed out, and as you're pointing out, there are just so many different angles on this that we're going to really need to work to make sure we have a meaningful resolution that's bulletproof on this. I'm going to keep going over here because people have been so patient. Samantha Fennell, I apologize if I mispronounced your name. I see that your hand is up. Samantha, you have the floor. Samantha, if you're speaking, you're muted. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. But we certainly appreciate your patience and presence. Is there anyone else?
I am here.
There you
Sorry
are. Go
about
ahead.
that.
Okay, thank you.
John, thank you so much. And thanks to Kevin and Brad and everybody else here for your diligence and for allowing us to speak today. My name is Samantha, and I am a homeowner next door to a new smoke shop that's 80 feet away from a middle school. And I live here with my 6-year-old son. And as a resident of the block, I watched this particular establishment set up shop under the cover of darkness and watched as they painted the wall murals of familiar children's cartoons, as you heard from Ali and Kyoko, the Pink Panther, the baby from the Family Guy, and Pac-Man. And while they have, in fact, recently removed the smoking paraphernalia that was set up in front of the store, I think it's important to recognize that, when you have the number 420 in signage, it's clear to passersby, it's a wink and a nod as to what you are all about. But I would like to kind of make a little bit of a differentiation between the onslaught of dispensaries versus smoke shops. The smoke shops are really, for the most part, shops that are there to just supply the delivery systems of cannabis. So some of them have no intention of selling cannabis, but just as if I'm making an iPhone, I go into the iPhone cover business because you need one if you're buying the other. So what we're seeing all over the city, of course, but in particular in dangerous proximity to schools, are drug paraphernalia very blatantly displayed within eyeshot of children as young as first graders, kindergartners. I should mention, I'm a 20-year media and advertising veteran, and by opening up a smoke shop within a few dozen feet of a school, they're really taking a diabolical page out of, a dark advertising and retail history, which was really one of, predatory businesses blatantly targeting and appealing to kids in order to develop that product interest through proximity and familiar association, which of course then leads to trial, curiosity, and ultimately early adoption. So I think, this is a serious concern because of the proximity to schools, grade schools, middle schools, et cetera. And it is definitely not an accident that there's a proliferation of these sorts of businesses being set up in front of, the schools that our children go to. And when my 6-year-old son asked why he couldn't go into the store that had just opened up next door, I explained that it's a store for grownups who like to smoke. And he, at 6 years old, asked the obvious questions. Well, then why are they across the street from a school? And why do they have the Pink Panther on their walls? So, you know, a 6-year-old can figure this out pretty quickly. So, you know, I'm just here to appeal to you all to already, you know, thank you for the work that you've already done. And then to, you know, really repeat what Ali and Kyoko have said, which is, you know, the clear need that we have for a resolution to create legislation and to enforce the legislation that already exists. There is a public health law, or Article 13-F, Section 1399 DD1, that restricts the public display of smoking paraphernalia within 500 feet of a school. Yet these stores are popping up with a window full of bongs regardless. So, you know, we definitely need new legislation, but then also an appetite for enforcement for the legislation that already exists. Thank you.
Samantha, if you're uneasy putting your email contact in the chat, could you send it to office@cb6 so we can connect with you? You sound like you could be a valuable resource as we move ahead. I like the way that you laid out the proximity to, you know, leading up to use, and I think that that sort of thing is important for us to have a good understanding of.
I'll put our email in the chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but if you put the CB6 email in the chat, that way you don't have to publicly put your own email out if you don't want to.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking over at the chat and I see at the attendees, and I see you know, a lot of people there who are you know, who've been very patient, and I just want to give anyone over there who wishes to speak an opportunity to speak. Kevin, I see your hand, but I just want to make sure we don't have, and I see Pete Dever or Dever. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Alexandra, could you bring Pete over as quickly as you brought everybody else over? Thank you. That was a challenge. Thank you. Hi, Pete. Welcome.
Hi, how are you? Thanks. Yeah, just a quick thing. I mean, we relocated our kids from CV1 because of these same concerns to CV6, and now we have the same concerns. So,
got it. Thank you. I mean, we are acutely aware. I mean, as I said, as a parent of teenagers and kids, you know, we're aware, and I really want to make sure we do a bulletproof job on this as a group with Elvie and Claire as we move ahead. And Kevin, I'm going to ask you to be patient one more time. Pete, do you want to make further comments, or?
No, just thank you, and just noting the geographical relevance of it.
Yeah, 500 feet. So that's a pretty. I mean, that's a tougher rule than alcohol in some ways. Anybody else who's been patiently waiting in the attendee group here? We just really appreciate it when the public spends so much time listening to us talk and go on about other things, and which are important. The school buses were obviously important, but we appreciate that you all stayed. Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to give everyone a chance to comment or speak. And I will again ask, Kevin, just one sec. I'd like to ask, are there any members of the committee who wish to make any further comments at this point? And Kevin, I'm going to recognize Ben Warden, the president of Community Education Council for District 2, who's asked to speak. Thank you, Ben. Ben, you're muted. You're doing what I did.
Thank you, John, and thank you for putting this meeting together. Actually, the bus discussion previously it was very informative, but I also have to echo a lot of what, and I don't want to echo because they said it so well, what Ali said, and Kyoko and Samantha and Pete, and because on the community council we've been receiving notices or emails with these similar concerns. There was a school near another middle school, or there was another smoke shop near another middle school, and there was a lot of community concerns, and it eventually closed down. So that quieted the issue a little bit. But what you're hearing here is not not new to us on the Community Education Council. And I was hoping what could be added into a resolution, or maybe the elected official representatives can consider. I don't know if OCM has a Department of Student Protections. I think that should be added to OCM's purview, so we could work together to ensure that the community's concerns are being heard and there's some kind of response, there's some kind of appeal process. So I would ask for that. In District 2, Community Education District 2, we have a dramatic drop of student enrollment. So as Pete said, parents can move. So I think it's absolutely imperative to have a way to respond and to concerns, because we've lost between 20 and 25% in District 2 of students in public schools. So we want to stop that hemorrhage. I think also, besides having churches 200 feet and schools at 500 feet, I would also add playgrounds. Where students are congregating. Not every playground is by a school. So I would just look to that, and you have, and it's not only just the smoke shops. I would also think about secondhand smoke by these playgrounds and by the schools. So maybe having a secondhand smoke within 100 or 200 feet. And I wouldn't just limit it to cannabis, or I would also look for cigarettes too, because these are young lungs, and we've learned from so much from COVID. Let's learn from this too. And I would just add that as well. And I understand we don't want to put undue burdens on new businesses, but I think the notification process should be shared. And it should not just be siloed in the OCM's websites. It should be distributed out to community boards, to community education councils, and we can be shared to our districts so parents are informed. And if we can keep parents part of the process, because they're concerned about the young ones, as we're here, then it makes it a more sustainable legislation long run if everyone's concerns are being met. And I think there was one other. No, those were the points I wanted to make.
Thank you, Ben. And it sounds like, first of all, it's always great to find an issue where people aren't yelling at each other, where we seem to agree, so that's why one of the reasons I like focusing on issues like this, and school crossing guards and safety officers and things like that. Okay, so we will be reaching out towards you as well as we do this. We have a pretty broad, but I know that Claire and the Business Affairs Committee is very interested in being part of this notification process, and we'd like to get it where that committee can do what it can do on alcohol licenses. But we're going to have to be patient, as LV pointed out. It's a process. I'm going to continue. I'm going to give Neil Barkley, a committee member, a chance, and then I noticed Elisa DeVito has her hand up again, and then I'm going to get to you, Kevin. But I just want to.
John, can I just add one other point? If
Sure.
Also in that notification system, if there could be violations also distributed. So if there's a business selling to students, a family should be aware of that too. So
yeah, if you could shoot me, I know this is a busy week, but sometime in the next couple, week or so, if you could shoot me an email with some of these ideas, because I'm always looking for ways to collaborate with CEC too. Okay. And I'm going to, we have a committee member who wishes to speak, Neil Barkley. Then I'm going to go back to an attendee, and Kevin, I haven't forgotten you, but I do. You were so instrumental in this, but I want to make sure we hear every voice that wants to be heard, and also get out here, in a reasonable time. But, okay, Neil.
I think that Ben, he makes a really good point about the playground. So my question, Brad, would be, are there any laws that would state that, you cannot set up a table, or because it's sort of similar to the trucks where, they park somewhere and the same with the tables. So I don't know what the laws are in a park, say for example, and then there are playgrounds in the park, because they are starting to pop up, the tables. So that's one question I would have, because obviously if it's right there near a playground, the kids, they're going to see it.
So there, actually, I was looking at the draft regs while these questions were coming in, and there is not a ban on playgrounds, but it is one of the things that is specified as something a locality can regulate. They can regulate locating near community facilities, and playgrounds are one of the things that are defined as a community facility. So and to be clear, nobody can sell in a park, because you can't get you get a legally. They can, so that's something that you can't have a mobile, you can't have a van, you have to have a location. There is a delivery, there is a delivery possibility, but that's from not to a park, to a residence or whatever. And also just one other comment, I think it was Kevin who asked about preschools. Yes, so the definition of school grounds includes public and private preschool, nursery school, elementary and secondary school. So just to go back to that one. So Neil, did
I noticed, Elisa, Neil, is that okay? Are you?
So just, all right. So with the parks, one, I believe it's illegal to even smoke a cigarette, right?
Yes,
in a park.
And it's illegal to smoke cannabis anywhere that you're smoking a cigarette, although I won't pretend that people don't smoke cannabis in parks, as we all smell.
Right. But so I think when these things happen, such as the tables popping up, which are close to playgrounds, or where kids are congregating, which is the park, what would we do? Is it the same enforcement email that we would use?
Yeah. I mean, if you're aware of a park where they're doing this, where they appear to be selling cannabis, you can certainly bring that to enforcement. I mean, now people, to be clear, people have sold cannabis in parks for generations. So I think I will say that I think that as someone who used to walk through Washington Square Park on a regular basis 30 years ago, I can confirm that. I'm not sure that targeting that is going to be as high a priority for OCM as targeting actual stores, because there's also a concern about going after the legacy market in a way. The goal is to convert legacy sellers, people who've been selling cannabis for years, into licensed business people, but that is a process. And I think that going after the brick and mortar stores is probably going to be a higher priority for OCM. Just from
I totally understand that. I will just with the email, I'll keep up with that from what I would see. Just because with the example of Washington Square Park, so it's one thing when you're selling marijuana in the shadows, and we know it's there, and that's okay. But then when you have big tables that also have, nice green colors on there, and, bright red or other types of colors, it grabs, kids' attentions.
The more obvious it is, the easier it is to go after. I guess maybe I'm a little, it was pretty darn obvious when I used to spend a lot of time in Washington Square Park, which was admittedly 30 years ago.
But no one had a big green banner. I know, but thank you.
Thank you, Neil. We're really pushing up towards 2 hours here. I noticed Elisa DeVito has her hand up again, and I do want to really respect that you folks have all come here and been patient. So, Elisa, do you wish to make another point or ask another question? Alex, could you bring Elisa over? Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I think you have an audio problem here. I'm going to give you a chance to fix that, and I'm going to go to Kevin. Kevin, thank you for your patience, but we had a lot of people who were trying to speak. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks again for the floor. I'm actually a messenger. There are, looks like parents that are not participants, but they're listening. It appears live. So I am going to read two questions because I know, John, you did want to hear from everybody. First question, can we make landlords accountable for signing leases to establishments near the schools? Why aren't the landlords held responsible? Anyone? Maybe
I'm going to let Brad, you might regret being here tonight, but I'm going to let you handle
I
it.
don't see a reason. There certainly could be some kind of civil liability. I don't know that that has been discussed, but I don't see a reason that you couldn't pass something creating civil liability for someone for leasing to one of these establishments.
Okay.
Kevin, in the next.
Yeah, the
there's a
second
whole
one
list,
is-
there's a whole list of things here.
Yeah, there's an opinion in here. It's not necessarily mine. But that's, can there be something done beyond unanswered 311 calls to enforce when you find illegal sales? And I guess that's illegal marketing probably as well.
I mean, I would recommend that people use the enforcement at OCM. I gotta look at it again. The enforcement at ocm.ny.gov. I think that is probably going to result in somebody who has at least more knowledge about what can and cannot be done responding than if you call 311, where I think earlier on when these stores started popping up, I would get complaints from people that people called 311 and were told that selling cannabis was legal, so that there wasn't anything to do, which is not, not the right answer. So I start with OCM or enforcement at ocm.ny.gov as perhaps getting a different way to go if you're not getting what you want from OCM from 311.
All right. I'll just throw one more comment. Maybe it's for Katie and Eddie. Do we know if the precincts are what's the priority level of reporting illegal sales and marketing? Is it a precinct matter?
It's not a precinct matter. It is a DCWP matter for tobacco. For cannabis, the precincts are not being super hard on it right now because they're trying to work with OCM on this transition to the new license model. We have reached out to the governor's office about finding a way to get the resources to do this enforcement prior to the licenses being distributed, since it's, it does kind of counteract a lot of the goals of the legislation to have people operating without a license. And so we're hoping to kind of rein in on that before the licenses start going into effect. So we have asked the governor's office what sort of what additional resources we can get, but it's not really an NYPD matter at the moment.
I just want to say one thing. We did have a meeting with OCM, the 19th precinct, because this problem, as somebody pointed out, is not unique to Community Board 6, and the DCWP and some electeds from that area. And the 19th was working with OCM and doing some operations on their own, particularly around even stings. We're sending minors in to try to buy, because that's one area where if you can prove that they sold to a minor, the offenses are the penalties, the criminal penalties are high enough to make it something that the police are more likely to go after. So it may vary from precinct to precinct, but I got the sense from the 19th that they actually were within the limits of what they could do at trying to come up with strategies for addressing some of these stores. So it may vary from precinct to precinct too.
Oh, thank you, Brad. That's really good to know, because we've been told by other precincts that they're like, it's not really their jurisdiction. So it's good to hear people who are working collaboratively, and we can use that as we talk to others. I personally haven't spoken with the 13th or 17th about this, so I'm very happy to follow up with them on it.
Okay, thank you. And at least I'm going to give, obviously we have almost a matrix of issues here, you know, that we need to put together and, you know, and I'm going to get people on my committee to run with this. And I know that LV is very interested in it, and Claire as well. And I'm going to give Elisa DeVito one last chance to speak if you solve the audio problem.
Yes, I'm very apologetic for that. Thank you so much. I just briefly really wanted to thank everyone for their comments and for the efforts of everybody on this Zoom to bring this issue to the forefront. As a parent and CB6 community member, I echo all those that spoke before. I think these shops are opening at an alarming rate. So rather than sort of going after one specific shop that maybe is at the forefront due to proximity of a particular school, I really think we should look to CB6 and our elected representatives to help corral the efforts to address the issues. So I really thank you and look forward to some resolution. And thank you again, and apologize for the technical.
No, that's fine. It happens to me all the time. But
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone who was patient. And, you know, even if, you know, we can tie this meeting together a little bit. First of all, I really want to thank Kevin for escalating this through Ally to me and making this happen tonight. You know, this is something that obviously, you know, to tie the meeting together, you know, that was a simple resolution, but we're really hoping to get some attention through it. And so what we're going to do with this is we're going to try to drive some attention to this issue as well. And but here we have a little teeth because we have a Business Affairs and Licensing Committee that can get directly involved in allowing shops and shutting down places. So we have to figure out how that all works. As Brad pointed out, that's a complex issue. So I really want to thank everyone, especially want to go back and thank Councilmember Kalos for being here this evening. Ben was a great leader in education and many issues in our city, and hopefully we haven't seen the last of him. It's not a political comment, that's just a personal comment. And I would like to thank also Councilmember Rivera for her engagement on this, and through Katie and Eddie here tonight and all along. I know Carolina is, you know, really on top of all these issues. And of course, and as always, Councilmember Powers, who happened to go to a school that, you know, we've tried not to make this about one school, but you know, is very familiar with, let's say, with one of the schools that are concerned about this right now. So, and then finally, Brad, I would really want to thank you, and I want to thank through you Senator Krueger, you know, who has been terrific on this, and I think unless there is something compelling, since we're coming up on the 2-hour mark, which is rare for a Youth and Education Committee meeting, and there's a cat in Katie's background there who seems to be very, very interested in getting attention. I'm going to suggest that we adjourn unless there's anything, any old or new business from, he's been taking notes. You know, unless there's any old or new business that a committee member has, I'm going to. Okay. Alexander, am I allowed to adjourn, or do I need someone else to adjourn? Okay.
I think you need a motion, but it doesn't need to be second.
Okay, could someone make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
It doesn't need to be seconded, right? It's privileged. Thank you all very much, and have a good night and a happy Thanksgiving. And once again, Kevin, thank you for doing this. Thank you.